Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and I'm very excited to have with us today Charles Green. Charles, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So I'm going to switch into calling you Charlie, as we talked about.
Okay.
So you are an author, a speaker, a consultant, a seminar leader. You've done a lot over your many years in business. You're also the founder of Trusted Advisor Associates.
That's right.
Your client list is well known or includes many well-known brands like Google and Microsoft, Oracle, Accenture, many others. You also co-wrote The Trusted Advisor, really an amazing book on this topic around consulting and positioning yourself as a trusted advisor to your clients, and really leading with this idea of relationships. But I think certainly you're going to be much better at explaining what does trusted advisor really mean. And I want to just mention that I think these days people throw around that word quite often, right? They just say, oh yeah, I'm a trusted advisor. So what does it really mean to be a trusted advisor?
Well, let me say, first of all, the one thing you should never do is say, I'm a trusted advisor. It's great when other people say it about you. It really is, but don't, take on the mantle. It's basically, if I had to pick one sentence, it is someone with whom a client can share difficult conversations and feel safe about it. It's got a mixture of, there's some expertise in it, there's some objectivity, there's some integrity, but I think that boils down to it. Someone with who you feel has got your back and yet is objective, independent, and with whom you can have difficult conversations.
Is there a time or anything you'd point to in terms of when somebody might have or will have earned the right to either call themselves a trusted advisor or to use that label? Like, when, in your perspective, or in your opinion, is it appropriate to use the word or the term trusted advisor? So if you're a consultant, should that be part of your vocabulary? And if so, how might you use it?
Well, again, I really am dogmatic about it. You shouldn't use it with respect to yourself. And, internal to a firm, I think it's great to talk about it as an aspiration. If you want to quote other people who have called you that, wonderful. Just don't stick it in your ad copy. Don't lead with it. Don't introduce yourself that way. It's just way too self-oriented, and that's
Yeah, I'm aligned with you on that. So I appreciate hearing that from you. So let's say that someone says, okay, I want to become a trusted advisor. I'm not going to use those words myself, but I want to have that level of relationship and value exchange with my clients, with those that I truly want to serve. Right. What are some of the best practices or steps that you would recommend to a consultant who's working with clients? What might they do, or what should they do to reach that level of kind of trusted advisor status in the minds of their ideal client?
Well, that's a good question. There's kind of a progression graphic that we have in the book. It's not really a progression. I mean, you have to master a set of skills, but then conversations go where they go, and they don't proceed along some nice linear progressive thing. But I articulate sort of four different levels. One is subject matter expert, really good, got great credentials, all that kind of thing. And you have to have that. Another one is good problem definition skills. My co-author, David, sorry?
What do you mean by that, problem definition?
I mean, jointly skilled at coming together with a client jointly to agree upon what the problem is. My colleague David Maester, co-author on the book, had a great saying. He said, the problem is never what the client said it was in the first meeting. And at first I thought he was being hyperbolic. I've come to think he's kind of right about that. So, what a client will tell you in a first meeting is one thing, and you should obviously listen to it, and you have to be respectful and responsive to it, but also be suspicious, think, I'm not so sure it's that simple. And then there's an art to sort of, coming along with the client to the point where the client finally says, you know what, I think our real problem is this. And you go, makes a lot of sense to me. It's basically the same skills as a shrink. In that regard, you let the client discover the real issue. And once they've discovered it and anchored on it, you can be there with them. You get some reflected glory for having been around when they came up with a brilliant idea. Then there's an aspect of perspective and the ability to say, well, this is how SAP does it. This is how Salesforce does it. This is how we think about it. And then finally, there's a pure trusted advisor level. And the essence there is it's personal. It is no longer just business. It is no longer just, one company to another. You're talking to a human being. And, the realm of business has the whole panoply, the whole range of emotional stuff that comes to bear outside business is right there in business too. Successes and failures and comings and goings and firings and, resentments and it's all there. And if we neglect to acknowledge the humanity of the person that we're working with, you miss out on a lot and you become much less effective. So, and at any point in time, you have to kind of operate in one of those four moments, and you sort of have to have the courage and the flexibility to hop back and forth as the moment calls for. So that's how I think of it.
And have you identified, are there any ways to kind of accelerate that path? Is there, for example, one exercise or one initiative or something that somebody could do that you've seen, if they do it, it typically can help them to get closer to that level faster than maybe just slowly going through it?
Well, I mean, the quick answer is sort of no. But then in another sense, it's yes. I'm sorry for sounding weird, but I think a lot of this is mindset. One of the big myths you hear about trust is trust takes time. Actually, no, it doesn't. It takes courage. We are presented with opportunities all the time, talking with clients and so forth, moments where the client will let something go that's like deeply personal to them or, emotional or whatever. And you have to grab onto those moments. If you don't, if you let them go, you're missing opportunities. How long does that take? A nanosecond.
Right.
So, and how much training do you have to do that? I don't know. On some level, we got all that training in kindergarten. We know how to do it. We get stuck in these models of professionalism, or I don't want to, overstep my bounds.
Right.
It's funny. We work with like the big four, and the biggest worry they all have is being inappropriate and overly emotional. And I think, are you kidding me? You're a big four accounting firm. You're the last people that are going to do that, right?
Would you describe this idea? I mean, I think a lot of consultants are afraid or they're hesitant to tell a client what they really think in a situation where the decision maker will say one thing and the consultant doesn't want to rock the boat, right? They don't want to say, well, that's a bad idea, or here's another way of looking at it, here's what we've seen somewhere else. And so they accept it. To create that kind of trusted advisor type of relationship is the best practice to not be hesitant, to actually say what you truly believe, or how would you suggest that people approach that kind of situation? Because I think so many people encounter that on an almost daily basis.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm kind of I suspect with you. You do need to tell them what you think, but how you do it makes a huge difference. If you don't do it in front of a room of people, do it one-on-one, privately. Right. And there's a million forms of language that you can employ. You can play humble. I could be wrong about this, but it occurs to me, or I noticed blah blah blah, or with all due respect. There are 1,000 ways to phrase it. It's the art of dealing with another human being. But yeah, if you start backing off on truth telling, you're in trouble.
Yeah, certainly. So I know that your company does work around kind of how to employ this framework or the trusted advisor kind of approach to sales and to sales situations. Yeah. What's a mistake that you see consultants often making when it comes to sales? And I'm wondering that what would be a better approach, based on using kind of the trusted advisor approach.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you asked that one. Yeah. I point to two things. I think the biggest trust destroying problem, and again, we deal mainly with professional services and B2B and complex B2B organizations. You mentioned a few of them. The biggest problem is a rush to come up with the answer. And, all of us in this business, we've been trained since second grade. Me, teacher, I got the answer. Teacher calls on you. Good for you, Johnny. You got the right answer. You get the gold star, the blue ribbon, etc. And that works in second grade. But when you're dealing with clients, it comes off as depersonalizing, as arrogant, as not caring about the person. The truth is, people seek us out as consultants because they think we've seen it before. We've got expertise. We've got a track record, which is true. Mm-hmm. But then once they're asking for advice, they don't want to hear, oh, you're just like the other 100 people. Here's the answer. No, what they want to hear is, tell me if it hurts when I do this. Have you ever noticed that? gee, given everything you've said, it seems to me that maybe so-and-so. Oh, wow, then it's received wisdom. So, all that expertise is necessary, but it is not sufficient to get your advice taken. You earn the right to get your advice accepted by really honing in personally on that person in front of you. So that I think is relevant to business development quite a bit. The other one, and maybe the biggest thing that I see, and let's remember, you look at all the surveys of most and least trusted professions, salesmen are at the bottom. And it's not like the sales profession hasn't heard this. It's been true for decades. And I think the basic problem is almost all sales consultants or sales books or sales processes, they're all aimed at one thing as the objective, and that is get the sale. Well, I don't know, if I'm interacting with a salesperson and I know that his objective is to get the sale, I don't particularly trust him. So the paradoxical thing is, if you could relegate getting the sale to an accidental byproduct, and if your goal becomes, help the client, and by the way, if you do that frequently, you'll get more than your share, but don't make it the goal. And yet the whole mentality, and you know this better than I do, the whole mentality of the sales field is here's a better way to get the sale, close the deal, et cetera, et cetera. Totally selfish oriented. No wonder people don't trust salesmen, because they're operating from a mindset that essentially says, how can I most efficiently get my hand into your wallet? And they're lying about it. They're saying that's not what we do. We're client focused. Most of them are not. If you were truly client focused, you'd do a couple of things. Number one, you wouldn't care and obsess that you lost the deal, because you're bound to lose a few. As long as the averages are up there, you're doing okay. The other thing is, here's a radical idea. You'd be willing to recommend a competitor if it were the right thing to do. There's a great story. I won't tell the whole thing, but the essence of it is McKinsey did that once. They brought in the firm that I work for, because they felt we had expertise in a given area. We did the work. We said to the client, now you've seen what we can do. What do you think? Can we do some more work? And the client said, you guys did great work. Thank you. And we would never leave McKinsey because they were big enough to bring you in. How are you going to argue with that? You can't.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I kind of ran on a little couple of
No, I mean, it keeps coming back to mindset. I mean, in the conversation, right? So that you kind of, that first example you're talking about, rather than us going in and trying to talk and say, here's what you should do. It's actually kind of backing up from it and asking really great questions, which is at the core of being a powerful consultant, where you can really engage and, as you said, kind of pinpoint what's going on. But also, even right now, just the mindset that you don't have to rush to make a sale. It's not a transaction, right? You're building relationships. Right. And if you think long term, then there's going to be enough opportunity, enough abundance, whatever you want to call it, to still create the level of financial success that you want, but without having to try and pressure yourself to create a result just in the short term. So I really love that kind of reframing of it that you mentioned.
And the irony is the alternative, which, as you said, is like rushing to force and get this transaction. It doesn't work. It doesn't work as well. One of the big myths, again, it isn't just sales, I think it's rampant in business, is the belief that we all focus on short-term metrics, and because data it's easy to come up with metrics, so we do it and we chase the metrics. Well, one of the beliefs is, if you're going to focus on a short-term metric, then you should do some short-term behaviors to get there. But ironically, short-term behaviors don't do it. We don't want to deal with people who are chasing a monthly, quarterly metric. We want to deal with people who are principled, long-term, relationship focused. Those are the ones we buy from. So the results actually show up in the short term. So again, paradoxically, the best way to short-term results is long-term management, not short-term.
Yeah. So take us back, Charlie, to I guess July of 1995 or so. You were VP Strategic Planning at Gemini Consulting. You left to start Trusted Advisor Associates. You'd been at Gemini for many years. Why leave? And I'm just going to put words in your mouth and you can spit them right back out. But, a cushy, stable gig, you were executive level, I'm sure earning a nice salary, maybe some bonuses. Why leave that to jump into the entrepreneurial waters that could, spin you around and spit you out to start your own thing? What was the driving force for you to do that?
Well, it was twofold, to be perfectly honest. Number one, I had held, at that point, I was operating in a couple of staff positions, and I'd done every staff position except head of IT, and I wasn't qualified to do that. So that wasn't going to happen. So on the one hand, there was nothing else to do there. And I've been getting itchy and restless. And to be honest, nobody's ever asked me this, but I'll tell you, the company was getting itchy with me too. So we finally came to kind of a mutual agreement, bye-bye. And they gave me a nice package and I sailed off into the sunset. So you can describe that any number of ways, but
Yeah.
you're right, I left and I didn't exactly have trusted advisor associates on my mind at that point. That came a couple of years later, but
How did that come? So what was the what's the origin story of trusted advisor associates, and even more, just the concept of capturing this word? I mean, you and I were talking before we hit record in terms of where did the term trusted advisor come from? And you said, yeah, it's actually been used before we wrote the book, before we named the company around it. But why did you kind of latch on to trusted advisor and decide to build your brand around it?
What happened was Rob Galford and I, Rob's an old friend. Rob's one of the other co-authors along with David Maister. We've been doing some training and we both knew a guy who headed marketing at Columbia Business School. Well, Columbia and Kellogg at Northwestern had jointly been hired by Deloitte and Touche, one of the big four accounting firms, to do a 2-year massive partner level training program. And the head of partner development there said to both schools, we love you guys, that's why we hired you, but you're all academics. You need to go find a few seasoned ex-consultants or something. Right place, right time. And the first night of the first session, that guy came to me and Rob and said, hey, one of the professors missed his flight. We have an open hour tomorrow. Can you two throw together something on the idea of a trusted advisor? And we said, sure, we're good consultants. We'll do a 2x2 matrix or something, don't worry. So we did an hour and it went well. And he said, what could you do with 2 hours? So this went on for a few sessions and we decided maybe there's a book here. And then we bumped into Maister, who I'd known some years before at Harvard. And Maister said, gee, I'm kind of working on the same book. Tell you what, because we hadn't had any luck with publishers or agents. They all said we need a data oriented book. And we said, well, it's not a data book, it's a wisdom book. And they said, that stuff doesn't sell. Maister said, I've already got, I forget, 3 books or 15 books or something. He said, I'll solve that problem. So he picked up the phone, called Simon & Schuster Free Press and said, I got a new book. And they said, great. So David became lead author, which he deserved. And the 3 of us wrote the book. By the way, I don't recommend 3 author books. It was quite an exercise.
I was going to ask you what went down or how did that play out? But you've answered my question, because I could imagine it being a little bit complex when you're bringing 3 different people's ideas to the table, and it has to be kind of encapsulated in a book. We can leave that there. Yeah.
Maister basically played the role of project manager, which was good. We needed that.
Right.
And indeed, he'd done it before. And Maister and Galford will probably never again speak in this lifetime. They're very different people, and I always ended up being the one in the middle. I know and love both of them.
Right.
And that kind of worked out okay. So anyway, the book was written. Maister went his way, which was kind of the guru of professional services. Galford went his way, which was to be a board member and lots of different training sessions. And I'm the one that said, gee, this trust stuff is kind of interesting. Let me see where that goes. Mm-hmm. So I formed Trusted Advisor Associates, my firm, wrote another book on trust-based selling and, grew the firm over a while. And there it is. I just kind of, at any point in time, I would not have known what I was going to be doing 5 years hence.
Did you have any challenges, Charlie, when you, after you opened up Trusted Advisor Associates, to get those first few clients and kind of build the book of business? Like, were there any struggles in the early days, or was it straightforward for you because you had a network?
No, it was hand to mouth. It was we got Towers Perrin, which doesn't exist as Towers Perrin anymore, and we got Deloitte, and we kept doing some other standard subcontracting, but the business built and built. And I'd say over 3 or 4 years, I began to be able to say, you know what, we can do 100% this stuff, and there's good clientele for it. Yeah, but it was rocky for a while.
When you look back, what was the turning point for you? When did you start to go, okay, yeah, like we actually have a really viable business now. I feel that we're on more stable ground. Like when did that tipping point get reached?
I don't really know. It was more progressive. I can't point to a time. I think it was more saying, oh, thank God I don't have to go back to corporate. Right. I think it's going to work. Let me try a little while longer and just progressively getting more and more comfortable and confident with it.
What were you doing in those early days from a marketing perspective, lead generation perspective? The steps to create conversations with real decision makers and buyers. What were you
Yeah.
doing in those early days to create more conversations?
Well, the book itself was a big help. I mean, it's the best business card there is.
Yeah.
And it turned out, that was a good title because, as you said, the term was kind of out there, but nobody had staked a claim to it.
Right.
So the book helps some. We did have, an in with Deloitte because of that work.
Right.
I forget how we got into Towers Perrin, but that was two, and we kind of networked out from that. We did not do and still haven't done very much in the way of new, lead gen for cold calls or anything like that. It's been very much networking, referrals, references, following people, going to other firms, that kind of thing. The occasional rifle shot.
And when you say that the book was a big help, was it just that the book was out there and people started contacting you, or were you leveraging and using the book to get in front of people?
Yes, both.
Both. Okay.
Mostly the second. It was a hell of a calling card,
Right.
and
And what were you doing? I mean, were you identifying, let's say, a group of ideal client companies, finding out who the decision maker was, and then sending the book in the mail to them along with a letter and making a phone call? Or like, what was the process for you back then to be able to actually set up meetings with people using the book?
it was a little squishier than that. I remember this is pre-internet, pre-Facebook,
Sure.
everything.
Yeah.
It was more like, gee, I know somebody at Deloitte, and he says, you should talk to somebody at Accenture. Oh yeah, sure. Give me their phone. How do I get in touch with them? Well, let me send you an email or something and introduce you. And then you have a phone call. By the way, let me send you the book. Hey, I love the book. So it was kind of incremental relationship hip
Yeah.
hopping, I think,
Got
island
you.
hop.
Yeah. So today, Charlie, your firm offers assessments, seminars, coaching, training to organizations. When you start out in the early days, and I don't necessarily mean like day one, but the first few years of doing business, did you have all the current offerings that you have
No.
today? So kind of walk me through, like, when did you add each one of those? What did you begin with? And what were the
Yeah.
next few things that you added?
Well, in our case, we began with really with workshops, exec ed stuff.
Yeah.
A half a day, occasionally a 2-day thing. And it took a while, but I generated enough material that I could put together, a solid day or two if I had to, which means I wrote a bunch of cases, developed some interactive real-time exercises, did some thought development. One thing I did that was very smart, I did a lot of things that were dumb, but one that was good was writing a blog. And early on, I forget when I started it, probably 2002 or 1999, something like that. I forget. But I forced myself and had discipline to just write basically a couple a week. And we've still got 1,000 blog posts, 100 articles, a bunch of stuff. It's still up there, and it still is serving a good purpose. That's kind of the core repository. Chris Brogan pointed out to me years ago. He said, you got to think of that as the center of your ecosystem, and everything feeds into it. Now that concept may be fading away a little bit, but it still works. We developed a ton of content,
Right.
and are constantly able to go back to it and refer people to it. So if we'd send an email, we'd have 5 links in it, 5 different blog posts, and they were good.
Right. Right. So you start with the executive kind of education workshops.
Yeah.
What was the next service offering that you added after that?
The next one actually was keynote speeches.
Okay.
And the only logic for that is I wanted to do it. For some reason, frustrated actor, I don't know,
Right.
wanted fame or something, but I really put a lot of effort in development, and I paid for really good coaching in keynote speaking. That was next. Coaching came along about the same time. I ran into a friend of an old business school classmate who said, you got to meet this guy. And he was indeed great. And he continues. His name is Stuart Hirsch. Continues to be kind of our lead coach. So that got added early on. We didn't get online, with virtual deliveries of stuff for a while.
Right.
The self-assessment, the diagnostic tool that you mentioned, is a thing called the TQ, like trust quotient, like IQ and EQ.
Sure.
That was an online self-assessment version of the trust equation, which was in the original book, probably the most popular part of the book. And that came in about 10 years ago. I was in a supermarket one day and at the checkout line, and there's a magazine rack, and there was like Red Book or People or something, and the banner headline on the magazine said 20 questions, rate your sex life, or am I an alcoholic? And I thought, gee, that could be interesting. 20 questions, am I a trusted advisor? So I went home, threw together, 5 questions on each of the 4 variables in the trust equation, threw it up, and today we've had over 200,000 people take it. So we've been able to develop some data and say some interesting things about, what drives trust, what's the most important part of it, that sort of thing. And that continues to be an important part of, we don't make much money on it, but
Right.
we use it in almost all of our sessions.
So is that, I was going to ask you guys, is that assessment mainly as you're working with your clients, you'll have their team members go through it, or is it that you use it as part of your marketing as a tool to kind of bring people into your world and expose them to that early kind of the earlier concepts of what you're doing and follow up with them?
Both, more the former. Like
Okay.
if a client hires us to do a series of workshops, we'll say, you know what, you ought to start off with having everybody take the TQ. And here's the pricing. It's a little bit extra, but it's not much.
Right.
And then you can build it if they all take it. And everybody loves to take self-assessments, right? Find out what my score is and so forth. So it's not hard to get compliance. And then early on, you can say, here's the results of lots of people haven't taken the TQ. Here's the average. Here's what a military contractor looks like. Here's what a law firm looks like. And here's what you guys look like.
Right.
Like, oh my God. So it's a great way to get people engaged and, to point out some, and it does differentiate. You do get somewhat different results with different firms.
Right.
It does give you some good insights into what they need to work on.
Charlie, are there any products or services that you've launched, but later on cut because they just couldn't make it? They didn't work out well.
Yes. Geez, I'm trying to think. See, I've forgotten them now.
That's how good they were. You forgot.
That's how good they were. And we kept trying and trying. Geez, what was it? That's such a good question. Well, we made a lot of runs at going virtual and it never took. I did a podcast for about 2 years and then I just stopped it. I did a newsletter for about 5 years. And both of those had good runs. They were healthy.
Yeah.
We were never able to make stick. I had kind of email consulting. We were never able to make it stick to get a what's the right word for recurring revenue sign up.
Yeah, like a monthly subscription, you mean? Or
yeah, subscription. Thank you.
Sure.
Right. We had not been able to make that stick.
Gotcha.
Maybe we should take another run at it. But
you like every entrepreneur business, right? You try things and some things work and some things don't. But
right.
so today, I mean, you have a leadership team. You have consultants that are part of the team and the network. Was that your intention when you started the business, or were you initially thinking, I want us to be a solo kind of independent consulting gig, or did you have a vision from the beginning that you wanted to build out a team and make it much larger than yourself?
You hear a lot of people talk about, I had this goal, I had this vision. I didn't have either one. I have always simply, looked about as far as my hand can reach out and said, that looks good, let's go there. And so I never had any particular aspirations of founding the company, much less get too big. I just wanted to get paid for doing fun work.
Yeah.
And after a while, I thought, I don't want to do this alone. We can segment, we can differentiate, we can specialize, and it just grew a little bit. So, to this day, if it doubled, okay, nice. If it didn't, all right, that's fine, as long as I'm making some decent coin off it, and still, excited. So I don't know.
And who were your first few hires?
One was, well, first of all, I've got, everybody has a 1099 relationship. There are no employees of Trusted Advisor Associates other than a few admin people.
Okay.
Everybody's got their own little thing, so it's a network. The first big one was a woman named Andrea Howe, who is still with us. She has her own firm, but she and I, we co-authored the Trusted Advisor Field Book.
Yeah.
She and I, and she's been, kind of co-thought leader with me.
Quick question. Sorry to interrupt, but what percentage right now of the Trusted Advisor Associates, business or revenue comes from others, not from, but has other team members involved, meaning that it's not just yourself. Is that the
Oh,
majority or?
oh, it's a majority by a long shot,
Yeah.
80% maybe. Yeah,
So even though you are the sole employee of the company, you have, if I go to your website, you have a leadership team of a bunch of people. You have a bunch of consultants. So these are all 1099s, right? Working with trusted advisors. They also have their own gigs.
that's
But
right.
but the business that Trusted Advisor Associates does is really directly connected to your 1099's involvement in the business.
Correct.
Got you.
Right. That's right.
And why have you taken that approach? Why not bring people in full time? Why not? Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah. Why have it as a 1099 structure and not full time?
Well, two reasons. Number one, I'm very risk averse. I really like variable cost business, not fixed cost businesses. I don't want to get stuck in a downturn. So, and that's one.
Yeah.
The other reason was, well, that's the main one for not having people as employees. I think the other reason was I don't know everything, and there are certain people that have different skills than I do. And at least I'm good enough to recognize, wow, you know what, that guy can deal with Denmark way better than I can, partly because he lives in Denmark, you know. So, and I just found some very cool people. They loved the ideas, and we said, hey, maybe we can do some work together here.
Right.
And
And is that do you find that most of the inquiries come in because of the brand that you've built, the book, and so people come to Trust Advisor Associates, and then from there you're looking at your team of your leadership team and consultants, and you essentially pick and choose the ones that you feel would complement or add the most value for that specific opportunity and project?
Yes, that's exactly right. Most of the business still comes in sort of centrally branded around the book, the website, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then we parcel out work and say, well, so, why don't you take this and why don't you split this and you do the West Coast and you do Asia. And so, yeah.
So you have your consultants, you have the leadership team who are doing, it sounds like the bulk or at least a good chunk of the delivery on projects.
Right.
What does your typical day look like now, Charlie?
Well, I'm semi-retired now as of about, I forget, 6 months ago, 8 months ago.
So it's quite recent, quite recent.
Yeah, I handed over the CEO role to Noel Michaelenko, who is one of our associates.
I know Noel, yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, doing a great job. So my day, I mean, I still have a retainer relationship with one of my clients, and I have regular phone calls, not too many though, with Noel and a few other folks. So my regular week has got 1 or 2 golf games in it if I can manage it.
What was that? What was that transition like for you to kind of hand over the CEO reins to another person?
I had no trouble with it. And everybody said, oh, it's going to be the hardest thing. You're going to have to give up control. I was looking forward to it, honestly. I said, you know what, whatever the results are, we worked, Noel and I worked for months to come up with a very nice way of managing a relationship, gradually handing over ownership, et cetera. And I had total confidence in her, still do. And I have absolutely no regrets, and I don't waste a minute of time looking backwards and thinking, ouch, I missed this. I really don't. Happy to be doing what I'm doing.
With the benefit of hindsight, is there anything that if somebody was in a similar situation, anything that you would advise them to pay attention to in considering that transition? Is there anything that you did that you think, oh, I could have done this better? Any lessons that you learned through this process that you think others who might be getting close to that same kind of opportunity or transition that they should know about?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a process that should take some time. And I went into it, we did it in about 8 months. I think probably you should take 2 or 3 years to do that. Really think it through, really vet candidates, be more careful about it than I was. I'm kind of an impulsive person, but that's not a good model for most people. So yeah, take longer thinking it through.
And how about from a compensation perspective? I'm sure I'm guessing you likely consider different models or different approaches. Anything that you learned from a compensation perspective of how to, compensate team members, but also a new CEO in making that kind of transition? I'm thinking even for somebody who might want to bring in a new person for their leadership team, an operations person, but to get them out of the day-to-day of the business. Is there anything that you've learned over this last, year or
Yeah.
so that you think might be helpful for them?
Well, it was something I've learned over the last 15, 20 years is, which I really believe strongly, keep that stuff simple. Keep it really simple. If you're tempted to add a little, percentage override on a bonus for, sales development or something, don't do it. Keep it simple. You can complicate anything. But I found whenever you start complicating, it feeds on itself. It gets more and more complicated. You end up spending more and more time discussing, how to do this and how to make sure that it doesn't incent people the wrong way. Keep it simple. I've been very serious about that for a long time, and I think I was right about that.
Fantastic.
Simpler the
Well,
better.
Charlie, I want to thank you again for coming on here today, spending some time with us. It's been a really enjoyable talk. I want to make sure that people can learn more about your work, the book. Where's the best place for them to go?
The website, trustedadvisor.com. And just to be clear, that's spelled with an OR at the end, not an ER, trustedadvisor.com. You can take a free version of that TQ thing we mentioned. You can find all the blogs and articles and everything. Just trustedadvisor.com. That'd be great.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.